My dear Jacopo, finally I have you here in this Learn from Leaders program, finally. So I'm super happy and welcome to this series of podcasts. As you know, Jacopo, my intention is to show beautiful stories, but stories from leaders that we admire, and show that these guys, you have been in tough situation. And the reality is that the difference between successful people and people that don't make it is that you focus, instead of seeing the situation like a problem, it's an opportunity. And this program about. So what we want to know, Jacopo, I know that you are the partner of Capital, Scale Capital. And also I know, by the way, the beautiful brand, let me see behind you, Nilu. And by the way, I love the concept. Then you're going to speak about that. It's very ecological. But how a super smart corporate guy like you finish in super techie companies, media company, and even joining the fashion world with Nilu. So the idea is to know more about you, where you have been grow, the different companies where you've been jumping. It's no more about your life. So thank you, Jacopo, and please tell me your story.
Well, thank you, Ricardo. It's great that we finally were able to connect and find the time to sit down, and congratulations on this initiative. I think it's very cool that you're doing this, and I wish you all the success with it. But look, I'm not going to try to be prescriptive, right? I can tell you a little bit my story. People should take whatever whatever they feel is relatable to them, and I also had throughout my life, I used other people's life story as inspirations of what it could be, what I could achieve, right? So you hear other people not to copy, but to learn from, and to sort of imagine. Really, it's an exercise in imagination. And that exercise in imagination allows you to overcome your own self-imposed limitations, right? So I think we all, live self-limiting our own potential, and it takes time and effort to, one, recognize when you're doing that, and when you recognize it, do something about it. I think. I have a pretty, unique story, but not very different than other kids like me that grew up, children of expats, people who have moved to different countries for professional reasons. They brought their kids along. So
your family, your mother is from Italy, right?
Yeah, both my parents are Italian, from Italy. And I was born in Paris when my father was having a stint at this publishing house office in Paris. So I was born there, but I left Paris when I was 2. But we went back to Italy, and when I was 4, my father got a job offer to go to Brazil. So I grew up in Brazil, first in Rio and then in Sao Paulo. And when I grew up, it was the 70s and 80s. The concept of the global economy was far from where we are today. Traveling was quite difficult. I remember as a kid, even though I was very Italian, and between 4 and 18 years old, we only traveled twice back to Italy. So traveling to Brazil in the 70s was really, you're committing. It's a life commitment. It was not like today. It's like, oh, let me, jump to some vacations. It was much more than that. So I grew up there, and I always felt that I wanted to experience a world in, the larger world. So went back to study in Italy. Ended up spending 11 years in Italy, in Milan.
1 second. So you finished the until university, you were in Brazil.
I finished high school in Brazil.
Ah, okay, got it.
I did, I guess, college or university in Italy.
Ah,
Studied in,
wow.
and
You studied in
when I
Milano or where in Italy?
at the yeah at
Milano.
the Politecnico di Milano.
Ah, wow. It's one of the best schools in Italy.
It's one of the best engineering schools,
Yeah, for sure.
and it was
And one question, Jacopo, since you were from a family of a super professional guy, because if you were a corporate person at this age, so in the 70s, your father for sure was a very important player. Even though you have this corporate division, have you ever thought when you were a kid to do your own thing, your entrepreneurs? I don't know. Do you sell something in the school or not? You were not at this age thinking about business.
well, I don't not only saw my father. My father was, I think, part of this cadre of international business executives, right? But he was a business executive, so he was an employee of a large publishing company in Brazil, and a lot of the parents of my friends were also senior executives at international companies, um, because I ended up going to the French school, and so there were a lot of expats in that environment, and so this was clearly,
The role model was more corporate than entrepreneurship.
a corporate role model where you see, hey, there's doing a career in a multinational is potentially quite interesting. Um, and perhaps some of my friends' parents had, in my mind, probably more interesting jobs, because again they were more mobile. My father moved to work for a Brazilian publisher,
Got him.
so he had committed to Brazil in a broader way, but for some of these other parents who had come to Brazil working, for GM, right? So they were there for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they
And
would
they moved to another place. Yeah.
country. But it was interesting to see, and that was clearly a role model. But then I think the other role model came from my mother, who was originally an English teacher in Italy, I believe in high school. Eventually, when she went to Brazil, she became a salesperson for a high-end jeweler. From there, she went to work as an editor in publishing. From there, she managed a model agency. It was a very, I was 12 and 13. I was very fascinated going to her office. All these very beautiful male and female models.
We share the same experience.
And of course, for a 12 to 14-year-old boy, I think that's what I was. I was very shy at the time. But anyway, so then she quit that and she became an entrepreneur. And by the time I went to Italy, eventually she became, I would say, more successful professionally than my father.
Oh, wow.
So I think my mother was he was quite an inspiration, but it was also quite an inspiration how they did that together, because to allow her to be an entrepreneur, like my father's job stability allowed her to take bigger risks, right? And she took a much bigger risk. She ended up getting a much bigger reward.
Of course.
And that was an interesting.
No, and also show the education of your father, because so many times at this age there were machistas, so they don't want the woman to work. So in your case, your father, he was totally cool.
No, my father in that sense, male centric society. Well, it's almost like funny, right? Because post World War II, and my parents lived through World War II. So post World War II, I guess one could argue that the male-centric model was in decline during World War II, right? If you think even in the US, right, the call to production from all the women going and producing armaments. But I think the war eliminated all of that nonsense. And in a way, I think the 60s were probably, in a way, quite progressive in terms of women's development. And I think later on, it's sort of like depressed a little bit. Some of it came back, but it was not an issue in my family, fortunately. So it was clearly the example of, women can have success by being themselves.
You live with the two examples. You can be successful doing one thing or the other.
These were all great examples, but I was a teenager and I thought I could be a musician. I had no interest in any of them. But at about 18, I realized I really didn't have any talent whatsoever. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go into engineering. Because it's it was the 80s, and I'll learn everything about electronics because electronics are transforming music, right? It was the age of Duran Duran synthesizers.
But let me catch you right here, Jacopo, because this is something that I love. People need to always follow the passion, and in some way you did. So maybe not exactly, but you have some skills in this area, and I really believe that we need to focus in what we love, in what we are doing great, and not in what we want to do but we have no skills at all. So
and that's a very good point, and I brought it up because it actually has been an inspiration and a direction that has played throughout my entire life, even today, right? Because again, right, so I made a choice which was rational. So I was driven by a passion. I want to be in show business. I like entertainment. I like music. Okay, I cannot be a performer, a music performer, because I don't have the technical talent, but what can I do to be involved? Right. And now
that I'm thinking, maybe even the model that you saw in your mom business. So maybe also these things show you what you said, the show business. I don't know. So
my mother's business was in fashion, and you were asking about my involvement in fashion, or perhaps a little,
exactly.
Something related to that. But no, I think my mother's inspiration came much later. I mean, at that point, as I'm young, I'm trying to say, okay, how can I be close to what I love, but knowing that I'm not going to be, Mick Jagger. I won't be the rock star, right? So I say, well, I'll do engineering, and then I worked as a roadie during many engineering years. So I would, pack, a truck full of speakers and mixers and cables. And work very long hours to put in a party, a show, and then pack everything back. So do 20-some hour days, be extremely tired, make very little money, but somehow learn. Like every one of these was a learning opportunity. And besides learning the technical aspects of that, I also learned that doing that job in Italy was going to be a dead end. Because if you want to be a roadie, I guess you probably should do it in London, where you're gonna do it with the best of the best, or you're gonna do it in the US again, right? So in any experience in life that you're doing, you should ask yourself, I think, or at least I did, is what I'm doing, am I learning? Yes, so that's good. But am I learning, the best that there is, or am I learning just something that, after I'm done learning, nobody's going to want to hire me because I'm doing something.
This is another thing that is amazing. What you just said, that is so important to, at any age, whatever you're doing, try to learn. It's so important. So I love what you just said. And in this world of digital, where you have an hypothesis, but until you jump on the field and you see the data, you don't really have any idea. So it's all about, trying something, prove, adjust, and keep going. It's okay. Okay, but but going back. So, but going back, sorry, but going back in. So you went to Italy. One question I understand because you have your roots in Italy, but at this point you were never thought about going to the US to study, or was like, what was the reason to go to Italy instead of?
It was actually very simple. I would have wished I would have gone to the US, for college. But realistically, US would have been a lot more expensive. Being Italian, studying in Italy was
Advantage.
affordable.
Okay.
Was affordable, and so my brother was already in Italy studying economics.
Got it.
So the family, it made sense to do that.
Of course.
And again, when I was in Brazil, whether it was Europe or the US, everything was a world away, right? So I didn't yet, I guess, fully appreciate the differences. But it stayed in the back of my mind. So I finished university. I had an internship with IBM, developing software for artificial intelligence of all things in the early 90s. So I have a little bit of fun now that artificial intelligence is such a cool buzzword, but a lot of the things they're doing today already existed in the 90s, which is funny. Of course, computing power was nowhere close, but so I did that here at IBM. And because I guess it was a little bit of the safe idea, right? So let me get the typical job that you get offered. And I realized I'm extremely unhappy, and I will never be able to be. And I go back to my passion for entertainment. I was like saying, well, do I really want to be doing logic paths converting into logic trees? And anyway. So I'm saying no, and there I really took a risk, because I'll say I cannot say I'm interested in staying here, because I was still finishing my university. So I said, no, I'm looking for other opportunities. I had good relationships there. I'm sure I would have been able to find a job there, but I said, no, this is not my path. And then after a while, I got a job with the Associated Press, which is the well-known press agency in the technical services office in Milan. And while it was not perfect entertainment, it was much closer. It was like media, right? So I spent 5 years there, again in the technical capacity, and again there, I think I had a realization, much like IBM, where I say, okay, I'm doing something, I could continue doing this, but I know I won't be happy. Then I went to the Associated Press. I worked there 4.5 years, I believe, and I had some, good times, some bad times. But as you go through that, I was also realizing, well, this is not gonna lead me somewhere where I want to be in 20 years. I'm gonna get some promotion, etc. It's gonna be slow and boring, but if I want to work for the Associated Press, I should be either an outstanding photographer or an outstanding journalist and be writing, right? So, because when I go back to saying, who are you learning from? So, from the technical perspective, if you're working for the Associated Press, it's not like you're working for Apple. Right? You're working for the Associated Press. Nobody's going to hire you from the Associated Press on the technical side to go work at Facebook or Apple, right? So I realized that, and I'm saying, well, if I stay much more time here, my career is just going to dead end. And there I took a risk. I sold everything. Well, first I applied for an MBA in the United States. So, that idea of going back to the United States. I applied for a few MBAs. I got accepted at UCLA amongst a couple of others. I ended up going to UCLA, and the reason I chose UCLA was the proximity to the entertainment industry. I wanted to be in LA because there's a value to proximity.
Of course, the people 100%.
Right? They say, oh, I have Yeah, exactly. Like the networking. So there, it was one of those things where you sort of, okay, I'm betting all of my eggs in this one basket. I sold everything. I had a pretty decent life for a 26, 27-year-old. So I sold everything. So I sold the car, sold all my things, packed everything into, I think there were 9 big bags that somehow I fit into that Alitalia flight from Milan to LA. And somehow they didn't charge me any extra baggage.
But
And
to this point also Jacopo, it's so important also what you just did, that there are two type of people: the people that just are in one place and they just let, kind of the waves take him to the place wherever the waves is going. And there is the other kind of people that is kind of a ship that is broken the shape, is going to the direction that they want. And this is taking risk. This is scary as hell, but at the end of the day, is the only way to really, at the end of the day, be happy. And I'm for sure can imagine yourself in this panic moment, because when we do not have incomes, is scary. And when you're going to a different place and is in a different place just to study, that is spending money. So it's kind of a stop. So, but again, these brave decisions are the ones at the end of the day make you happy in the long term.
Yeah, and I think that's very critical, right? Because that's a good example of, there was a moment where in my personal life I was very happy, very comfortable, right? But in my professional life, I mean, nothing wrong. I was well liked. Had good hours. Everything was very comfortable. What wasn't comfortable was my mind. My mind was saying, "Hey, this is good, but it's not great. And, maybe good for me now, but in 10 years, will I want to be doing the same thing?" And so my mind was kept on saying, this is not good.
100%.
So this battle between, one side of me saying, oh, I'm nice and comfortable, and the other side of me is like, get uncomfortable and do it quick because time is going to pass. I have another philosophy, which is, in your 20s, you experiment. In your 30s, you establish yourself. And then, 40s and 50s, you
collecting
harvest. You harvest what you
exactly. It's true.
Differentiated yourself in the 30s, right? But so I was getting to my 30s. So I started my MBA when I was 29, finished when I was 31.
Still super John, by the way. Still super John.
Well, I think I was slightly above the average. But yeah, very much not very different from an MBA. And I think an MBA, you need a few years of experience. So when you do the MBA, you're not just, well, I'm going to figure out, but you're doing for a specific plan. And my plan was, I want to get in the entertainment industry, not in a secondary.
Now I'm going to be directly to the field. Exactly.
I want to go in
the core.
Right. So it's LA. It's it's where all the studios are, and having a lighting might malfunction. Let's see, what have I done here? There you go. Ooh.
Too much light.
Okay,
that's okay again.
There you go. So
so, and you finished the MBA, and what happened then?
Well, while I was doing the MBA, so I did first an internship with Mandalay Pictures. That was my first opportunity in the entertainment industry, and spent 3 months there interning, and then I got an opportunity to intern in the summer at Fox. In their finance department, where, right, I brought, they got me because I had these technical expertise. So they always look at your background. Your background is the anchor that is going to open new doors, sure. Right? But you have to play yourself to develop that story about yourself, that expertise, experience that allows you to now branch off into other things, right? So I was coming from a very technical career So what was the job that got me there? It was in finance, but it was in finance where they were interested because because I knew how to program databases. And it's not something that most people that come from a finance background know how to do. So they say, oh, that's great. We have a bunch of people that know accounting better than this guy who just did, a year MBA and basic accounting. Sure, accounting is much less complicated than than a lot of the engineering that I had to go through. So I could learn quickly, but it's not like I had 5 years working at PwC, right? So, but they had that experience. What they didn't have is somebody who could get their database and put all their data in order. So it was synergistic. So they got me in the door because I brought something to the table, and frankly, because I didn't cost much. I cost like a basic intern, summer intern, standard pay.
But again, this is another good strategy. So many times people get desperate and they want to get the big check, and it's more smart to get in the place as soon as you can, whatever it discussed, and then build yourself inside.
Absolutely. It's like, again, like short-term pay is not long-term gain.
Exactly.
Right? Now, if you have 2 options on the short term, they give you the same sort of career opportunity and you can get paid more, well, great, good for you. Nobody's going to say no to that. But that cannot be the driver. The driver, again, was obsessive. I want to get in that direction, and I knew what my gaps were. And I was trying to fill those gaps with the investment in the MBA, right? So learn all about business, not any MBA, a top MBA, right? Because any MBA, again, doesn't have that value to carry you, right? So a top MBA, it's already where you something you can leverage for the next step.
100%.
These internships. So I interned in the last, like I said, to Mendeley in the last quarter of the first year. I interned in the summer, and during that summer, I looked for other opportunities to continue interning in the second year. In fact, during my second year, I continued a full year working at Fox as an intern. And one of the quarters, an unpaid internship, so an internship for credit. So that's what happened, with that finance job in the summer, or that finance internship. I was able to land an internship in a business development group that worked on satellite television, which was much more interesting in terms of direction. I was like, and it was the introduction from these people saying, oh, putting a good word on my behalf that got me the next one.
Oh, and what you are describing, in some way you were preparing without knowing to maybe one of the most growing successful areas that is going to be in the future, the satellite, and you have the technology, you have the finance. So
at the time, yeah.
And this is also about timing. Timing is everything. So the time that you get is also very important.
Timing is everything. To me, what drove me is, okay, what is interesting? What is, and I realized finance, okay, it's not going to be the thing for me long term. Where can I be adding more value? And the business development group was sort of a strategy group. Again, I had a big gap. Most likely business development groups in the entertainment industry, most likely they will hire people that come from investment banks, because that's a typical background that they want. People who can, create business plans very quick, they can be rammed through Excel. That was not me, right? But I brought something else to the table. And again, I came in at no cost, right? The first quarter was free. Hey, try me out. I'll work for free. So I'm doing my classes, but I'm also working for free. And after those 3 months, I was able to find a niche in that group. There were a lot of people who were better than me in doing business plans, but there were certain things when it came to, let's talk about these technologies. And it was the late 80s. And then people were talking, the internet is coming. How do we do the satellite and the internet? And that for me was like super simple. And they couldn't understand what I could understand. And then they realized, wow, I was adding a lot of value to the 100%. Team. And so and that allowed me to
drive.
capitalize on. And they ended up offering me a job, and I when I finished my MBA. So I didn't go through hundreds of interviews. In fact, very few interviews. I don't particularly like job interviews, to be quite frank. In fact, I don't think I ever got a job through a typical job interview. All of my have been more through building relationships, showing what you can do in a
yes,
not creating a high cost of entry. Let me prove. Let me get in.
And I believe this is the best strategy, by the way. I totally agree with you. So it's in my case, I'm terrible in test. But if you let me showing how much effort put on my idea, this and that, I will be for sure the one that you pick. But in test, in just one interview, is so short. The time is so many things can happen, and I don't know. It's hard to really show all the potential. 100% with you.
Yeah, and I find sometimes there's like these great stories, like Harrison Ford when he got the part for Han Solo on Star Wars, right? He was doing his carpentry jobs and he just didn't care. He just do these auditions. Well, he was in LA, and again, he just was so relaxed and he got the job. I saw some recent interview from Jason Alexander, how he got the job in Seinfeld. Similar thing. He thought he didn't get the part. There was somebody that he had heard was much more qualified. So he went and said, oh, I'm going to have fun. So he went and had fun. So anyway, he performed better. In job interviews, I tend to overthink it. And if I'm, too excited, I'm too tense, and then I'm not thinking clearly. It's okay. So,
and how then how you jump to direct TV?
Well, at that point, again, I'm with Fox. So Fox, as you know, was controlled by News Corporation, Rupert Murdoch's company. He already owned or controlled Sky, Sky in the UK, Sky in New Zealand, Sky in Australia, and Sky in Latin America, right? So that was satellite television. The business development group that I was with was specifically dealing with satellite television investments and paid television channels internationally. So launching the Fox channels internationally in Europe, Latin America. So I got involved with the satellite TV business, a bunch of analysis on, and it was a time where Rupert Murdoch was very active in trying to expand his satellite TV holdings. And so I got involved with that and I ended up spending all of my time on that, which was, like you said, sometimes, that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Like you were saying, timing.
100%.
I was prepared. I was in a good area, satellite television, that I understood, all of the technology. I understood how to speak with the technologies and how to speak with the business guys. So I was I created myself this role of being the bridge between technology and business. And I was lucky because it was the area where Rupert Murdoch was very focused to grow News Corporation.
See, we can see life like a gaming where you need to always keep working hard, and the more you keep working hard, the more doors you can open. And when you open a door, then open another door and another door and door. So it's true that timing is everything, but if when the times arrive, you are not prepared, you didn't do the homework, you didn't have all the points that you need to pass to the next level, you just miss it. So I think it's super important to keep open doors.
And I have to say, like, that company was really extraordinary in terms of like providing opportunities for young, it was really a flat organization. So, okay, he was focused on that. This group was, dedicated to this specific business. So very quickly, I got exposure to the very senior leadership, Murdoch, Chase Carey, Peter Chernin. So all of a sudden you're like start demystifying, and you start realizing, well, these people that I had been just a few years just reading, on the newspapers, like this guy, these people that live in this other world are real humans, and you start saying, hey, it's at the end, it's just a person with opportunities, ambition, and demystifying that idea that you cannot reach. If opportunities align, that you cannot reach anything. So that was a great school, and I stayed with there. Then eventually in 2003, Fox purchased the control of DirecTV from Hughes Communication that was controlled by General Motors. I had the opportunity to work on the team, a very large team that had worked on that transaction. It was a very good, interesting experience in M&A. So, so you see this, that between, the MBA, when I was in Italy, pre-MBA, at the associate press, a technical job. I mean, in 5 years, all of a sudden, 5 or 6 years, I went from maybe I said, this is a dead end job, we're not going to go nowhere, to all of a sudden I'm involved with, the top echelon in the world of companies doing, being the real movers and shakers of the industry.
Amazing.
And that was amazing. And so he was able to complete the acquisition in 2003. And then he brought in a new management team, who was led by Chase Carey, who was the co-chief operating officer of Fox, and I was one of the guys on the team that okay, now what happens, right? So I was eventually offered the opportunity to lead the Latin American region, excluding the two main countries, Brazil and Mexico, right? And then I started, I took on my first, and it was pretty big opportunity. As again, I say, that company was a great company for young people in their careers, because they will take chances on people they think are smart, and so they gave me this opportunity, even though I didn't have all the credentials. I had internally a good reputation. People would say good things about me, and the guy that I ended up working for, he just hired me based. He just gave me the opportunity based on the internal referrals.
And how many years you have been working? So you worked for DirecTV. So for how long you have been there?
So then at DirecTV, I spent 11 years.
Oh, wow.
11 years, from 2004 to 2015. And in 2015, DirecTV had already gone through 2 changes of control. I believe Fox and News Corporation gave up control around 2009, 2008, 2009. Then eventually control changed again in 2010. Was a fully independent public corporation for a few years, and then in 2015, AT&T bought it. And in 2015, I left my job, as I let the new manager from AT&T take over the.
And you start your own investment, your own companies, or?
Well, it was a. So now, remember, the 30s was really when I was able to really put myself. Now, as I go into 2015, I'm in my 40s, and I had a fantastic run at DirecTV. This division, which we call Panamericana. I started running it, we had 800,000 customers, but in 2015 we had 8 million customers. So it was a fantastic run. I had a lot of fun, particularly the first 6 years, where I was very involved in, and I was learning a lot. The last 5, I had a lot less fun because I had really created a very good management team underneath. And they had all the fun. They were doing all of the fun stuff. They were creating, they were thinking, etc. And I was just at that point, making sure the organization was. I guess I was the orchestra director at that point, right? And I can't complain because the last 5 years, actually, our stock price is when we saw most of the value of the growth in the valuation of the stock. So it was good, but I felt also I wasn't learning anymore, and perhaps if AT&T had not purchased it, I would have had to either do an internal move or say, well, I need to do something else, right? So again, like the brain was telling me, okay, everything is very comfortable.
Where's the next challenge? The next challenge.
But it's okay. What are you learning? I'm not learning anything. And at that point, not learning anything, I knew I was missing on something because, digital was growing like crazy. Streaming is growing like crazy. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm in this industry. I know technology and I feel I'm obsolete. I know I'm obsolete. Think about digital marketing and all of that. And I'm spending all of my time, managing the status quo, but I don't have enough time, in thinking ahead of what's going to happen in 5 years, right? And but anyway, so AT&T bought it. So in a way, I was forced through circumstances. Well, I'm leaving my job for leave space for the new AT&T guy who came. So what's
next?
What's next? But now, okay, I've been doing satellite television for 20 years. It's not considered anymore the up and coming technology. And in technology, if you're not in the up and coming trend of technology, you're already obsolete, right? So I need to reinvent myself, but I was a little bit burned out. So I took a good year of sabbatical, moved to Miami, spent a lot of time kite surfing.
You deserve.
Getting in shape, relaxing, reevaluating life. And then I say, okay, how do I reinvent myself? Do I try to get a job, or do I try to find opportunities? And the first opportunity was to join the board of a media company in Peru, the largest media company in Peru. They control the 90% of the newspaper circulation, plus the #1 channel, and a #1 TV channel. And of course, they had a very interesting challenge, which was to transform the traditional business for the digital, right? So I thought the challenge was interesting, and I spent 3 years on the board. Actually, it was extended a little bit because my mandate ended right in the middle of March of the pandemic. So there couldn't be trips. The boards couldn't even meet. It was so to extend a little bit. I think it ended up being more like 4 years. But my involvement, and it was interesting. But there's so much that you can do as a board member. A board member is a counselor, is critical in ensuring the good governance of the company, but you're not actually involving in the transformation. You're evaluating if the transformation plans make sense, etc. So it was very interesting, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And but finished once I finished my mandate at the end of the 3-year official mandate, I decided, well, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be putting my full-time effort in other things. But in the meantime, during that, I had developed other relationships, and one of them was with the guy who's now my partner, who had created a venture capital firm based in Chile and was investing in technology. And we started talking, and we came up with the idea, well, if we partner up, how about we partner up and try to, instead of making this just a venture capital firm, we maybe do private equity type investment, bigger investments, right? And make this a bigger firm. And eventually another partner joined from Spain. And I guess we created the first, I'm not sure it's the first, but one of the first Zoom-based firms, because here I am based in Miami with one partner based in Chile, another partner based in London.
At least you start very digital. You start very digital, at least.
And we started doing Zoom calls way before Zoom was a
trend.
And so we spent we spent some time. Again, there was already a fund that was fully invested, so we were helping manage already what the firm had made, and I bought a share of the firm when I came in. So it was like, okay, I'm going to become an entrepreneur, but I'm leveraging a platform that already exists. I'm not just starting from scratch. And we had some hard lessons. We tried to raise a fund as a private equity fund. We couldn't do that for a number of reasons, like timing, Latin America, etc. And then we changed a little bit our strategy, but we continued. We were stubborn, and eventually we had the opportunity to, as I think you mentioned at the beginning, to actually purchase what had been DirecTV Venezuela. Of course, my connections with DirecTV, but the company had been shut down for regulatory reasons, and we were able to buy the assets that had been shut down, reactivate the service under another brand called Simple TV or Simple TV, and so we've done that. We've launched a virtual mobile telephone operator, so called Simple Chile.
So right now it's the number one in Venezuela, right?
The Simple TV Venezuela is the number one operator in Venezuela.
Wow.
We have, well, I don't think our numbers are public, but so.
No, it's okay, but at least it's the number one. So this then.
Yeah, by a good margin.
Wow.
And yeah, so
huge potential, because at the end of the day, for sure you can grow there a lot more than what you have right now.
Yeah, it's still
it's a complex situation. For sure, it's a complex situation because it's a complex. Everything is complex in Venezuela. I come from there, but it's also, but again, it's another beautiful thing that we can share in this story. So even though, so many people run away from Venezuela. No, I don't want to even talk. And you saw an opportunity again. So this is what we need to always focus.
We saw an opportunity and we saw a real need.
But again, it's timing. It's timing, but also you have the knowledge. So again, you were prepared. You were prepared. You were working in the fund before. So when the opportunity arrived, you have everything: the expertise, the money, the team, everything. So and these are the secret of life. So do the homework. To when the time arrives, be ready. Jacopo, I need to jump in some question that everybody, because I want also to, even for my kids, I also for your kid, it's important that I want to have kind of a reference of everybody that I'm interviewing to show that at the end of the day, the majority of the leaders, they do the same. So they're super fast question. At what time do you go to bed?
Between 10 and 11.
Okay, and wake up?
6:30.
Okay, early. So this the majority of the successful leaders do the same. So they sleep. You need to sleep to then use the machine in the proper way. Another thing, do you eat healthy?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Do you do exercise?
Well, right now I'm doing more exercise than should be ideal for health, because I decided to do a full Ironman, which I'll see if I'm able to do it. So I've always exercised, but ever since I moved to Miami, a good diet and exercise has been central, and a good sleep has been central to be able to perform.
100%. One more thing, Jacopo, do you have any person that you admire during your life? A role model?
A lot, a lot of people. You know, I think I mentioned before, I have a great admiration for what my mother did professionally. I have, you know, I'll mention another example, which I think is a great example as a role model for women. A person like Angela Merkel, right? Who, again, got to the top. It doesn't matter what people think of you, you know, the limitations of being, she was the first female chancellor of Germany.
15 years in the government, not just one situation in where he was stealing money, same salary. So it's incredible. So it's a hope, by the way, for the politician in the world.
Sure. You know, people who have broken through. I frankly had a lot of admiration for Rupert Murdoch. I think you know, one could then have debates about you know, his political leanings, which I happen to believe they're much more moderate than depicted in the media. But he was incredibly gracious person, right, and approachable. And you would meet somebody like that, you know, a titan of the industry, and he would make everybody feel comfortable. And you know, there are like simple gestures like that that make you think, wow, you know, there's I think you know, people who leave you that thing about, you know, there's goodness in humanity, I think.
Amazing. One question.
We're all are flawed individuals, right? Sorry.
One more question. If you have, do you remember one advice, just one, that is always there in your mind? One advice, or the best advice that you have received?
I don't know if I can point to where I've received, but I go back to this thing that always, it's like, don't get too comfortable.
It's true.
If you're getting too comfortable, you're getting obsolete, right? So it's like it's good to enjoy comfort. Nothing wrong with that, but if that goes for too long, you know, are you getting? You know, are you learning? So I don't know.
If you need to say one book that for you, say if you need to recommend one book.
You know, I really like in terms of books. I'm not sure if it would be if I would recommend. I'm trying to remember the name of the book. I particularly like biographical or
stories from leaders.
Stories about real stories, right? About things that happen in reality. When I read,
like learn from leaders, like this chapter. So there are people saying exactly what they're doing.
I don't like so much to read fiction.
Me too. 100%.
Right. So, and one of the genres that I that I particularly like is around war and conflict, right? So I'm trying to remember the name of this book.
Don't worry. Keep in mind, I'm going to jump to the second one, then you come back. So, what is your biggest achievement? The big achievement in your life.
There is I like every one of those key steps, like, getting into the NBA in Los Angeles, getting a job at Fox, getting this deal done for Simply Venezuela. Like all of these, that they were sort of like
Key moments.
transformational. I don't know that I could categorize because there were different phases, different points in your life, right? So, so each one of these was transformative. The key was that transformational.
Next question: the worst or the biggest mistake in your life, the biggest failure. The music don't become a Rolling Stone.
not having become a professional. I think the reality was what it was. So I don't think it as a failure, because my failures, I think, have been always related to people, and my failures were always to not have recognized that change needed to be done sooner.
Got it.
Right. So change, when you have the responsibility of an organization, and sometimes change needs to be done. Sometimes the coach needs to be replaced, even if it's not the coach's fault, but because the organization needs a change, a shakeup. And my biggest failures have been to delay that more than I should have.
And the last question, Jacopo, an advice. What is the advice that you need to give? An advice, just one, to the people that are listening? What would be your advice?
Don't get comfortable. Don't get too comfortable.
It's true. Jacopo, I love you. Thank you for your time, brother. It was amazing. I'll send you soon the link to share, okay?
Sounds good. And I was trying to find this book. I didn't find it. It had to do with the story of lone survivor.
When you find it, send it to me, and I will put it in the copy of the post, okay?
So I want to say one thing.
Of course.
Because Lone Survivors was a big hit, right? Became a movie, etc. And it was an account of true events, right? And this other book was written by a journalist based on the accounts of the Marines who rescued Marcus Luttrell. And I love that book because it tells a story from a humility perspective. It feels like a lone survivor was almost like an effort in glorifying and frankly creating a story about the war. And really, at the base of it, there's a tragedy. The reality, I think, which was much better told in this other book, was, I think, a lot more greedy, unglorious, and of course, there's a lot of suffering. So I was saying, I like that book because it sort of like challenges our perception of reality, and we have to accept that reality is always uglier than it appears and we would like it to be. And if we accept that it is, we can do better to, right? If you accept reality, you can make reality better. If you live in the world of fantasies, then no good things come. No good things come from that. Anyway, I'll finish here.
I agree. Thank you, Jacopo.
I'll find. All right.